Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today, pleased to welcome Major Ed to the show. Welcome to the Wolff Den.
Hey, my brother, being American and glad to be on the show, making it happen. And thank you for all that you're doing. And we're making a difference, my brother.
Yeah, that's the goal, making a difference, making some change, one person at a time, one day at a time, baby steps. Before we start, got to thank you for your service and sacrifice, so we all can enjoy everything that we are. And when I say service and sacrifice, it has a special meaning for you specifically, but everyone who serves. For the people who don't know who you are, just give a real quick intro, and then let's get into it.
Well, I've got to tell you that I'm going to start out by saying that, when my father once told me that when you take the oath of office to defend the greatest nation in the world, it was always about our love for our faith, our love for our country, and our love for our family. And he was a Colombian immigrant, and I came to this country, and you know what? He afforded us a great life, and he's gone, and I always dedicate everything that I do to my father, who really was my hero, my friend, Vietnam veteran, Agent Orange, comes back, and life is tough, but they weren't taken care of when they got back from Nam, and certainly he made a good life out of himself by continuing his service to this great nation. And as a Colombian immigrant, that's the way that he approached it, is that life takes various turns, and at the end of the day, you got to have a country that you can love and that accepts you. And that's what it was all about in our family. And that's how I start everything, because he was the backbone of what I'm all about, and what I stand for, and what I believe in, and how I approach the greatest nation in the world, the United States of America, and our freedoms.
Yeah, these are all interesting conversations in and of itself, and we'll hit on some of it. I lost my father in 2005, pancreatic cancer. How did you lose your dad?
Well, he's exposed to Agent Orange, of course, the drinking water and all of those things, and incurred a lot of, like a lot of these service members do, and the cancer and all of the things that go along with it. But he battled for almost 2 years. Don't hate to kind of bring the politics of the world into it sometimes, but he was one of those recipients of that shot, and all of a sudden the cancer spread rapidly and aggressively, and after a period of time he was bedridden, but was able to get back up and get nursed. And I just attribute everything that he taught me to who I am today. And I'm sure your father did the same thing. That's what we're all about.
I try to. It's, you talk about your dad, this was a COVID thing?
Yeah, and I don't like to talk about it too much because some people get all riled up, but I'll just say it like it is. He took that shot, and all of a sudden he goes into this aggressive mode of cancer, and it spread all over his body. I know that some things happen to some people, and some things don't happen to others. Fundamental issues with some of that stuff, and it's not politics to me. It's more of the fact that at the end of the day, that's what happened. That's our story. And I'm going to advocate to making sure that, as a nation, we aren't doing some of the things that we do in regards to those kind of aspects. And I'll give you an example of, and not to dirty any laundry on this, I'm actually a byproduct of the anthrax vaccine. And when I took the anthrax vaccines, I had some issues related to that. So to see my dad go down like that, it just kind of gave me a different perspective. I'm not anti-vax or anything of that nature. I just kind of want to raise awareness about the fact that sometimes things that you put in your body may not react very well to who you are and what you're all about.
Yeah, that's interesting. Your dad had no cancer before the shot?
Well, he had cancer, yeah. Okay. Agent Orange, was in recovery, and then all of a sudden he takes it, and by February he was down for the count in a hospital bed, and there was just some issues related to that. Again, I've had some friends that have gone through some of that too. In fact, one of my friends, Tommy Harrell, I tell his story all the time. he went into this stroke mode, kind of like Justin Bieber did. And the thing about it is, I'm trying to let people know and educate individuals out there. You know what? You can do whatever you want, put whatever you want in your body, but living a healthy life and being productive and understanding the dynamics that we face on this, on this earth right now, and everything that's going on with all of that. I think that we just need to do our homework, be vigilant, and understand that, you know what, at the end of the day, there's things that happen to people when they take some of these vaccinations, and that's the bottom
Yeah,
line.
I think it's interesting because I'm a for the greater good kind of person. That's how I vote. That's how just I am. Um, and the army and the Marines and serving for your country is really for the greater good. We know going in that there's going to be casualties, and so as if we talk about the vaccine as a whole, there's going to be losses, but for the greater good of people, I think it's fair to say it worked for more than it didn't, much more in a way that we could. And I hate to do this, you know it. It's a military thing, like collateral damage, whatever that is. It's stuff that has to be done. So from that point of view, as someone who served, you don't serve anymore, you're retired. They did have, correct me if I'm wrong, they had a mandatory vaccine to serve, correct or no?
Yeah, well, for us, it was anthrax, smallpox, and all of those things. And it's interesting we're getting into this conversation because I'm one of those people. I'm very positive about a lot of those things, man. I tell you what, when you go into combat zone, for me, I actually was exposed to I took the anthrax vaccine, and I will tell you that what it did is it enlarged my heart muscle. We're kind of seeing some of that right now, but you know what? At the end of the day, like you said, if it works for you and it works for the general good and for people to be safe, we got to try everything in our power. And I've always been that kind of advocate. I just know that with my dad, he was one of those people that was just strong and willed. And you know what? He was just part of the collateral damage that happens. And I think at the end of the day, we move forward and we promote what's best for not only our nation, but its people. And I'm just glad that I served in the armed forces of the United States. And right now, I will tell you that there are some issues related to recruiting goals and some other things that are happening. I don't know how to combat that. I just know that they need to get the right people in the military. We can't have a small force. I do a lot of political commentary, and not only that, but just military analyst stuff. And have you seen the stuff with China and Russia and what's going on? We got to have a strong military, and that's where I come from. In talking about the things that I advocate for is, number one, a strong nation, a strong, faithful nation that believes in some guiding principles and greater good, like you said, and then a nation that takes care of its family and its people.
Well, I want to, sorry to interrupt, but that's where I think that the biggest issue is taking care of our people, especially the ones who have served and giving up.
Mm.
I don't want to say it's not a semblance of a normal life, but your life is not the same. It's not a normal life as whatever we define normal as for the average American, someone who served and has to come back in. A lot of problems, with, PS, TD and mental health and having struggled to find their way in a world, getting a job, right? Where all you're used to is obeying orders, but it's a different type than being managed by someone and saying, hey, go sell real estate, go do that. So what is it, money? I mean, obviously money, right? Money is a big factor towards that. What do you think is let's just say the quickest way to fix the short-term problem, knowing that it's a much greater issue?
Well, that's a great question that you asked. And, representing the John-Daly Major at Heart of a Lion Foundation, we do mental, physical, and wellness. We know that those are the three guiding principles that really drive everything that happens with our service members, our first responders specifically, is making sure mentally they're fit, physically that they have the resources. And like with me, I'm an amputee, so I need the technology advancements to make my life improve and have a great quality of life to be able to walk and thrive and be successful and work. And then, thirdly, wellness is exactly what you're describing. When you basically take care of your own and take care of your people, you make sure that you create a wellness kind of program or a wellness campaign nationally that makes sure that no one gets left behind. And that to me is the essence. So when you ask the question about PTSD and TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, and other things of that nature that our men and women are facing that come back not only from war, but from just everyday operational activities. Our first responders experience this too, where you may have a concussion, chasing somebody down, going into a fire, hitting your head on concrete with that helmet, whatever it may be. It causes some trauma to your body. And so what we've learned is that we have to advocate for that. I agree with you. Funding is one of the biggest issues out of all. If you funded every veteran that came back with the right funding opportunity and the right benefits and the right compensation and the right, for example, you get rated at a certain amount, and these ratings in turn create a funding stream for you. If we were able to get that right from the get-go, we would be successful in saving a lot of lives. Our suicide rate, everybody says it's about 17 right now. You know what? I've had two young people, not military people, young people, take their lives here at 17 years of age. I think it's a cultural issue. I think that it bleeds over to the military. And I think that at the end of the day, we have to have these strong conversations, put the right money where it needs to go in the right place, and make sure that, at the end of the day, that these people know that these resources are available, and that we as Americans take care of each other, check in on each other, be great neighbors, be great supporters, and have a great understanding of, I know our lives are fast, and I'm going to end with this. Our lives are really fast, and they go every day. But let's just take the time to love one another and support each other.
I think that was one of the great aspects of COVID. Life slowed down. We had more time for ourselves, more time for each other. Unfortunately, we were losing people, but I think that was something like slow down and figure it out. A couple of points here. We talk about not leaving anyone behind, and everyone just assumes that's, hey, a soldier in a war zone. But they're leaving people behind by just letting them be on their own and not giving them any type of support. And it's not a new thing. So how did it start that it happened that way? And how did it get so bad so fast?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I'll give you an example. And again, I always try to come from a positive viewpoint. That's how my life's always been approached. But if you don't talk about these issues, then you don't.
No, you can't only talk about the positive things. If we don't talk about the negative and have the tough conversations, we don't get answers. We don't get change. We can't move forward.
Well, and I'll give you an example. When I got basically told from the military after 20 years of service, hey, on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. You're damaged goods and you're broken. And guess what? You know what? We're going to give you some compensation and some benefits. And you know what? It's time to go to the house. And the thing about it, man, for me, man, my guys and gals that I worked with in the military, they meant everything to me. That's all I ever wanted to do at age 17 is serve this great nation. And I'll tell you, to be honest with you, like I hit a roadside bomb, a 250-pound bomb. And you know what? I could have died on that day and been destitute, and my family would have been having to get taken care of by the U.S. government. But the thing that I think that you bring out is the fact that, you know what? We have some purpose here. We have to have some initiative. And I think all of the things that I've just described is something that really has to have the power of each other that breeds that. And for example, us having this conversation, as hard as it may be, we got to have it, because at the end state, we have to have a positive, and we have to have a strong, not only military, but a strong military that when you get out of the military, we have the services. And
your volume went out. Hold on. Your volume. Can you hear me?
Fine. You know what? We're going to continue on this cycle. And one of the cycles that I talk about is a cycle that when you get out, you lose all of that connection to a lot of the people that you were connected with. And all of a sudden you're out there in the civilian world figuring it out. I think peer-to-peer support is one of the strongest things that we can do. And so when someone gets out, the best thing to do is be connected in your community, be connected to like-minded organizations that have a military interest, and then continue to be that person that connects with your neighbors and your friends, and you have a support system. And I think you'll be successful, and you'll see a change in the way that we do business, and the change of losing lives each and every day.
Yeah. You casually just told this story about it being an amputee, but let's go back to the story of what happened to you. I'm sure you've said it 100 times, but for the people in the audience to really understand when I say the sacrifice that you've given, what does that mean? Because if you go and serve and you come home, that's a huge sacrifice. If you come home whole, and I mean that mentally, physically, and all of that, but you're out in service, and you tell them.
Yeah, well, so yeah, I'm glad that you, because we did come in hot on this
Yeah,
whole show. Usually, I don't start shows talking about some of the things, but my dad is just a critical element. When I was on that battlefield, he did say that it's about God, country, family, and all of the serve in the armed forces of the United States of America to protect the American people. And on that day, when I hit that 250-pound roadside bomb in Baqubah, Iraq, first fragment hit my knee, broken in 3 places, fragments the left side of my body. I'm in trouble. The enlisted and non-commissioned officer in our military trains for those standards of excellence of knowing and understanding that, when you're hit and you're in crisis, we all got to react. You got to do your job. And combat medic pulls me out of the vehicle and puts me on 128-degree pavement. Funny, he said this. He says, "Man, Major, you're hurt bad. If you've ever taken CPR, don't ever tell the patient that, by the way." But he rendered aid, saved my life, and I was on a helicopter 47 minutes later. I saw the light of God. I always tell that story, an aspect of it, prayed a lot, died 3 times, and then I ended up in Baghdad, where I spent 17 hours in surgery, blood transfusions. And then Baghdad, I went to Germany, and Germany, Walter Reed, and then Walter Reed, which is in DC. And then I ended up at Brooke Army Medical Center in the burn unit in San Antonio, Texas, because my left leg and the left side of my body was burned. So I had to go and get treatment for that, and then find out I have E. coli and Cetobacter 2 staph infections, chemical agent festering in my leg, go 195 to 118 pounds in about 40 plus days. In October 1st, 04, they took my left leg away, and they were about to take my left arm, but they were able to save that. And I'm here to talk about it. Lost a leg for the greatest nation in the world, but you know what? I'm not giving up. I'm not going to quit. I'm the precious gift of life, and I'm resilient in everything that I do each and every day.
It's a great story. We had John O'Leary on the Wolff Den, who's one of the best motivational speakers I've ever
Yeah.
seen in person. I don't know if you know his story. He was burned fully, like 3rd-degree burns all over his entire body, and found a way to survive. It's just a remarkable story. We don't compare what people went through, but losing a leg, and the burns. Aside from the leg aspect, because obviously you're an amputee here, and there's much better technology now than there is then. How close are you to 100% physically outside of that?
Well, that's a great point. I got to tell you that was what happened to me on August 17th, 04 is the best thing that ever happened in my life. It changed my perspective. Mentally, it put me in a place where, look, I struggled. I live with a traumatic brain injury, will always live with that. And when you hit a 250-pound bomb, what happens is, if I would have hit it flush and hit it closer, I wouldn't
Yeah,
be. But the thing about it is, the fragments is what hits you. The concussion blast is a huge issue too. And to say the percentage of where I'm at, I'll never say I'm 100%, because there's no way.
right. But
But
close.
95%, and I feel really good about where I am, what I'm all about, and how I view things. And I just, I always have to say it this way, I was given a second chance in life, and what do you do with it? And I think that's what takes me over 100%. Is the perspective that I have that, what, at the end of the day, I'm on borrowed time, man. 37 years old, I hit this bomb. And then now I'm 55, and you know what? I'm almost on 20 years of living like this. So to me, it puts that into perspective, that at the end of the day, you know what? I have a great life. I have a family, and I have a support system. And I do talk about God, and I think all of us should be grounded with faith in some way, because that's what makes us good. That's what makes the work that I do whole. And that's what drives me every day when I hurt and I'm not feeling the best. At the end of the day, I get up and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to hit it again, and I'm going to hit it hard and have a good time, and hit things like John-Daly, because we're good friends, and have a great time in the way that we do things and we approach things, because that's all you can do, is laugh, smile, and take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I want to go back to a couple of things. If your dad's not in the military, are you a military guy?
You know what? That's an interesting conversation because all my brothers served Navy, Air Force. I'm an Army guy. I was actually a Marine for 2 weeks, and then the Marines couldn't get me back in time to go to college. And then my father, of course, but you know, he when he came to this country, didn't speak a lick of English. He's got a great story in itself. But the thing about it is that he just wanted to be accepted, and this country gave him the opportunity to get the citizenship. That's why I like tell some people in this country right now, I'm like, you should love this nation. You know, doing bad things to flags and acting up and burning up stuff and doing bad things. I mean, why would you do that to the greatest nation that has afforded us every opportunity that we have? And that's
You can be critical because I agree. This is the greatest nation in the world. I've been around the world. There's places I love to visit. I'd never live anywhere else, I don't think, other than the United States. You can be critical about it. There's reason to be critical about a lot of different things. But yeah, I think, burning books and flags and just disrespecting the country in general, I don't know. I don't think that's a huge majority of people. And I think those people are probably into some other things that are just not, it's just not USA bashing. But you said something about being accepted with your father. And that's probably a reason why a lot of people join, and serve, to be accepted. They feel lost. They want to be part of something. Maybe it's a faith thing, a religious thing. Do we have people in there who are not in there for the right reasons? Is it a big group? Is it just a small group? What's your sense on what I guess the makeup of the Army is right now?
Right now we're going through a little bit of a transitional phase. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I have to tell you that I'm not these byproducts where I need a stress card to basically cool down and not, oh man, I'm being stressed out from my drill sergeant or something of that nature. I mean, look, I went through a time in an era where they screamed at you, they disciplined you, and they created you and put together a byproduct to be a man and a woman, and a successful one. And that to me is what the military has always been. It's not an equal opportunity employer. It's about everyone wearing the same uniform, everyone having a rank structure, a chain of command, and always leading from the front and not from behind. And I always told people this thing that I always say, it's not about going to college, traveling. Those might be some things that are attributes and objectives, but the real reason you serve is to serve in the military and serve the people of America and serve your nation and serve the world in uniform. And that's what we're all about, is doing great deeds all over this world, all over this country, and having our military being represented so that we don't have those same things that happened in the past happen again in the future. Prime example, the attack in Pearl Harbor. That to me was a devastating attack. If there's anything that's happened in our country, that to me was overwhelming. September 11th could be put in a little bit of somewhat of that category, but we're talking about the war in World War II. When that happened in Pearl Harbor, it could have gone in a different direction. The Germans were doing what they were doing and everything. My only point is that we've had struggles in this country with things that have happened, and we've always been resilient, and we've always accepted our military as being the peace force for greater good, and all the armed forces that come together and protect the American people. And that to me is the essence of why you join. So I tell young people, don't look, those other things are great things that'll happen. And you can retire at age 37 like I did and go in at age 17. But the reason that you go in is for that reason. And all of the other things will come to bear. You'll have a successful career, but you'll know that you always serve this great nation in uniform. And that is the 1% that do that.
Yeah. And with talking about the struggles of recruitment, is like, if someone wants to be a part of this, let's let them be a part of it. I don't care if you're black, white, Chinese, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whatever, trans, who cares? Gay, not gay. So I think in this day and age, it's a hard job that people don't want. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. If there was a thing without lying, I'm going to find any way I can do to get away. One, because I probably don't, my heart wouldn't be in it. I don't think I'd be any good to it. And so that's the job that you can't half-ass. There's no half-assing. I mean, maybe if you're in like not on the field and you're behind, but even then, that stuff's all important. So anyone who wants to do it, let's find those people and let's come together as a unit and treat each other as a team and not, look, there's going to be ribbing, there's going to be, hazing and all that. That's fine. It's all good fun. Some of it, you see in the movies, like A Few Good Men. We don't want anyone getting killed by it, but just if you want to serve, and there's not a lot of people just running to be like, I want to be in it. Right.
Right now, that's a struggle.
Yeah.
That I just think if you're physically fit, mentally fit, and like you said, it doesn't matter where you come from. At the end of the day, I need you to be on my right, left side, and I need you to be ready to and prepare to fight for this nation in that foxhole. That's what it's all about. Look, all of the other little cultural things and this and that, and what you want to wear and this or who you want to love. You know what? That to me goes out the wayside. We're here to serve our country and we're here to be cohesive and we're here to be a unit. And that to me is the essence of success as is measured when you are in the military, because it's big business, man. I always tell people, if you don't take that stuff seriously and you don't take your training seriously, when
You went mute a little bit.
There
you go.
Be mission focused.
Yeah. People talk about World War III. There's no opportunity for World War III. If there becomes a war in that kind of, and I'm not an expert, but if there becomes a war in any kind of capacity like that, the world's over. It's over. There's nuclear stuff. It's just mass devastation. There's no winning, right? I mean, it's just the world that we live in today. There's no opportunity to have a war like that.
Yeah, exactly. And the armaments you bring up a good point. The armaments that we have today are lethal armaments that could take out the world tomorrow. And that is really one of the things that I've been talking about lately. I'll give you an example. Then this isn't from a political spectrum. It's just from the where it is. You have to always lead by strength. Right now in the Asian Pacific realm, you've got Russia, you've got China, specifically China in that realm, and then what they're doing with Taiwan, those stuff that's going on in Ukraine, all stuff around the world, it plays a role in our involvement in some way. And so you got to lead by strength. You got to be awake. You got to understand that they're positioning themselves. In fact, I was going to post about this morning. The Russians and the Chinese right now, those two individuals right now are positioning themselves to be leaders of the world.
And that's why Ukraine is so important, because if we let them take Ukraine, then they'll say, oh, well, we did that.
Yeah.
Well, what's next, right?
What's next? And the thing about it is that you always got to carry a big stick. And that is why we have a military, is to carry a big stick to make sure that the world is stable and not go through the things that we went through in World War I and World War II, because those were actual world wars. We've had some differences. Iraq was a lot different. Afghanistan was a lot different. But we've never had a group of nations come together and decide they want to fight against the United States and others. And
that's a losing battle for them. And that's why we stick our head in. But as a former military, do you ever feel like, why isn't the rest of the world holding up and putting in the effort that we do, when it's really, they're probably more just as dangerous as we are if this goes bad?
Well, NATO's a prime example of that. They were asleep at the wheel at the beginning of this Ukrainian conflict. And the Russians, and I don't ever want to defend them, but there's also some little bit of strategy going on here. Number one, we had some assets that were close to the border. Some people will tell you yay or nay on that. When you get a little close to that border, the Russian regime decided, hey, we're going to go take some of this stuff out. It's a little close to our border. We actually had, the Berlin Wall in 91 go down. When that happened, all of these other countries became more vibrant. Poland is a prime example of a great steward and a great coalition force. I'd fight with those guys any day. I've already been with them on the battlefield. Very strong, very motivating individuals. And in the Ukraine, there's just always been a lot, and this is just my opinion, but there's always been a lot of fraudulent, a lot of underground black market activities going on for a long time. And if you know anything about Russia, they lost control of a lot of these nations. And when they began to thrive and be successful, Putin didn't like that. And that now is at a crossroads of, do you go for freedom or do you go for socialism and communism? And that's the struggle of the world. And I just hope United States of America understands that and doesn't go down that route of any socialism or anything of that nature. Because look what could happen to you. You could look like Venezuela.
Yeah. I sit here, I'm talking to you for 30 minutes, and I can tell the type of intelligence and passion and all that you have. And then we talk about the military coming to you and say, your service is not needed anymore. That's a huge mistake. And companies, it's not just military, but companies do that all the time. Like, so what? You can't fight in there and your leg is whatever your leg is. And I'd argue that you're still probably physically fit in a very high percentage of people. But finding a place for you in the military to help is, you got to identify the people like you who belong in there. And that's a big flaw of the military, with just, age and illness or injury. There's got to be a better solution to that. That's my feeling.
I have an idea for you, and it receives a negative connotation, but I don't think it should. I think that what we should create is a after service. And I think the American Legion and the VFW tried to do that, but I think that, for example, with the school shootings, there could be people like me that could be there to support that. You know what I'm saying? And be at the ready at these schools and be these resource officers in some way. Like you just described, I think that we should have a after military positive militia where, we're identified, we're veterans, and that we're here to protect our community, during disasters, during trauma, during a crime.
Yeah, you lost your sound again.
And how much we have sacrificed and how well we've been trained. And why wouldn't you want to use those assets and resources for the greater good in the communities that, whether it's making sure that it's kind of like a Peace Corps of sorts, that everybody comes together, and from a military standpoint, that what they could do, successful. And so that to me is incredible. It's the power of who we are. And I just look at things that way, in a positive way.
It feels like the framework is there for the veterans, the VA hospitals, the organizations. And we're going to get into what I want to get into is the Heart of a Lion Foundation. The framework is there and people want to help. I'm not anyone to tell someone how to spend their money, whether it's government or even from a charitable perspective, but there's so much money wasted that could be better served. Let's take the elections for an example. Billions of dollars on elections when you don't need money to run a fair and successful election campaign. Just give people time to have a conversation like this, spread it to the world, and let people decide what's what, because that's really what's important, not what's in an ad that is 90% not true from both sides. And so all this money is spent on stuff where we could just take a tiny portion of this and give it to provide for veterans and mental health, which is a huge difference, outside veterans for sure, but even outside of that, it's just, the framework's there. Now we got to find a way to get the support, money, time, volunteer, whatever that looks like, space, people who inherit space, whatever it looks like. We need to do that. And so to that end, let's talk about the Heart of a Lion Foundation, which is a foundation that you and John-Daly started. How did you get into touch with John-Daly? How did this happen?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because John-Daly and I were sitting in a kitchen, and it was the COVID time frame. And I was working with a group called Folds of Honor Foundation, and we'd done a lot of great work, $200 million raised for military families and scholarships. And all of a sudden, I just sat there with John, and John told me, and there's a little bit of background with it, but he told me, he's like, you know what, I need to have a legacy, and there has to be something that, at the end of my life here on this earth, that which he had done so much great stuff, helping people, just doing things just off the cuff, but there was no, I would say, organized effort on his behalf to really do something that had his name on it. And even though he did all of these things with the Boys and Girls Club, because he's been working with them now 32 years, it was just evident that it was time for him to have his own foundation. And the greatest thing is that he said, you know what, we ought to start our own thing. And I'm like thinking to myself, put our name on it? Like, it was just incredible. And for him to actually, I tell people, whether you like this or that and what's going on, for him to actually just say, hey, let's put our name together. And then we talked about, what are we going to call it? And he's like, well, you're the heart, the Purple Heart, and I'm the lion. Why don't we just call it Heart of a Lion? And man, and in the heart, if you could see here, look, there's the heart right here.
Other side, yeah.
Yeah. And then the Purple Heart in the middle, and then we're the heartbeat of America. And how great it is that we got an opportunity to just create something that would help people. Boys and Girls Club, St. Jude's, our first responders, and America's veterans and their families, and do something that would be purposeful for all. I got to say that it was the right combination. It has not been easy because it was right around COVID time frame. But you know what? We haven't looked back. And now we're really kind of starting to gel and to move the needle forward. And it takes a couple of years to do that. It took a couple of years when I first started with Colonel Rooney at Folds of Honor. And look what we're doing now. We're making an impact, and we're changing lives. And we're changing the trajectory of advocacy, too, on a national scale, to say, here are the issues and the needs. Let's do something about it.
Education is such a big part of everything that we're missing and that we need to advance, whether it's cancer, whether it's veterans, it's mental health. The education piece is a huge part. We're not educating people. We're not letting them know where the resources are. There aren't enough resources. So that's such a huge deal. And we talk about ways to help. There's other ways to help other than money: educate, time, volunteer, stuff like that. So there's so much. I want to get into that with there. I got a chance to meet John very briefly at the Johnny Damon Golf Classic. And man, if there isn't a guy who enjoys life more than John, I don't know who it is. He was up there singing, he's smoking cigars, having a drink, playing some golf, having conversation. And I think he's such a polarizing figure, and had a tough life, if you want to call it, himself. I mean, some of it probably self-inflicted. I don't know all of it, but it's fair to say some of it's self-inflicted, but sort of with like a second chance at not at life, but just a second chance at a career maybe. And what are you going to do with that? And obviously, looking by what he does, it's a really positive and powerful thing. And his name helps, right? I mean, your story's great, but you throw John-Daly on it, it's a powerful thing.
It is, and it's an up and down story, and I think that's what everybody likes in America, because they can relate to it. All of us have had our ups and downs, and the thing about it is that I see a different John. And when we talked in the kitchen, it was a John that said, I'm going to commit to doing some things different. One was, not going to sit here and drink all of these bottles of liquor every single night. I mean, there was some other things that he decided he wanted to do. His cancer issue kind of brought about some change in his life. He's focused on his endorsements. He's focused on his family. He's focused on his faith. And that some people may not think to see it that way, but he's a faithful man. I mean, he believes in God. He knows and understands that, coming from Arkansas, it's got a religious tone to it, that state. And he knows the world of politics too. It's interesting. A lot of people may not know that he knows his politics, and he knows where he stands, and he knows that he just wants to help people. He doesn't care what political arena you come from. He just stands for America and for the great.
Well, he's a great example because he's friendly with Trump, however you want to put it, but you can be that way. Like we can get again a whole nother show about Trump. I'm no fan of Trump, and I'm no fan of people who are blind Trumpers.
Yeah.
But you can be someone like John, and you're just realistic and trying to do good. It doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter. So when you're hanging out with someone, regardless, I don't want to say we all are the same and can hang out and get along, because I don't think that's true. I think there's fundamentally there's people who just won't get along. We won't see eye to eye. There's things we can focus on that we agree on, but at the end of the day, we're not the same amount of people. We could focus on the fact that we're all American and we want America to be safe and good and prosperous. But that means different things to different people. So that's the tough thing. But the thing about John that I saw was, again, just very brief interaction, is that doesn't matter in what you say. And trying to do good with what his story is, with what your story is, the fact that he golfs. You guys have a big golf tournament that I want you guys to talk about, and some other things that you were doing. It's how anyone can look at this story and have anything negative to say about it, like what would that even look like? It's ridiculous, right?
And we got to a point in the politics of the world that we can't disagree with each other and agree on things, and that everyone is on one side or the other. They don't mean any good for the country. It's all political chaos and political misinformation. And I hate to say that word, misinformation, but I'll tell you that there's a lot of people that use the politics of the world to drive their agenda, to drive a wedge with each other. That's not me, man. I value everyone, but I'm also going to value what I stand for and the principles that I believe in. And there's a lot of people that have a little bit of a different take. I always tell people, some people ask me about Trump. I'm like, what? There's some things that he did that were very strong. There are some things that I think were suspect, in the sense that there's some people that didn't look at him favorably for. But you know what? I could rip this guy that's in office right now too. So at the end of the day, we can rip each other, and what good does that do?
No, we want to find the stuff that moves forward. But I will say, if you're talking related to the military, we need to call out bad behavior and hold people accountable so it doesn't happen again. And that's not just a political thing. That's in the Army, right? You can't do that. As we let people do bad things, it happens all over. And then I think that's where we've gotten to the point where bad behavior is like nothing, because people think I'm just going to get a slap on the wrist. Imagine if the military ran like that. It'd be chaos.
Not being accountable is a very important element of who we are. And
yeah,
exactly right. And I think that, to me, is probably the strongest word we can put together today, is be accountable, not only to yourself, but what you believe in and who you represent. And you know what? There aren't bad people. There's bad people on the left and there are bad people on the right, but there's a lot of great people in the middle. And that, to me, is where we should all stand together. And if we have a disagreement, we talk about it and we move on, and we develop a resolution that all of us could live under. But to downgrade each other and be negative, it just doesn't work. And it doesn't work because, you know what? We're all Americans, and that's where we should go back to, is being Americans.
Yeah. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's just harder than it sounds. The Heart of a Lion Foundation, what is the major goal of it? Obviously, we're talking about veterans and assisting veterans. What's the major goal of it, and how do you guys accomplish that?
Yeah, I have Chick and Monica do an outstanding job with the fact that they run the operational footprint. And then, of course, John and I are faces to this cause and what we're doing. As a veteran, that's kind of where my heart lies, in first responders, because my brother is part of the first responder and veteran community, so I know about all that. And now he's retired. But the thing about all of those things described is that we're here to help organize local footprints that we serve and that we do events at, and we give money away. We also do suicide prevention, morale, welfare, and recreation, with taking veterans and connecting them with hunting trips, golfing activities, any opportunities that relates to anything outdoors, because we think that outdoor stuff is important. Making sure that somebody has a job, making sure that people connect to doing what you're doing, having a podcast, having an opportunity to do media, and whether it's print or digital or whatever it may be, giving people opportunities. I call it empowering the job market and housing and all of the things that go along with it, curbing homelessness. I mean, those are all things that we work on each and every day, and just trying to get the community to rally around these veterans. And then also we do legislative advocacy, and sometimes you got to be real careful with that. But the pact thing that we did with and worked on and helped out with the burn pits, that was a critical issue. I know my dad faced some of that related to the cancers on the battlefield. It hits my heart. Now we're doing something where we're trying to improve compensation levels for our veterans, working with the VA, the Department of Defense. I've worked with them on the Real Warriors campaign, and that's part of our mission too, is to provide that mental connection and mental health support, behavioral health in the local communities, and making sure that we have information and resources, and then people understand their benefits. I'll give you an example. Last week we helped a lady who lost her loved one with grave and burial benefits support and information. I mean, that's just kind of off the cuff, but you'd be surprised when someone loses their loved one, where do they need to go and how do they access?
It's way too long and complex a process. My wife actually did some VA benefit stuff years. It could be years before someone can realize the money that they have coming to, and that's if they even know about it and know who to go to
Yeah.
to have it taken care of. The you've been around. This happened in COVID, so you're talking a couple years now, right?
2020, yeah, July 2020 first. And
So coming up, and you have a golf event coming up in July again, or
we have one in April, and we have
April?
mine, but in April we're going to be in Nashville. We do a big event with John-Daly, of course, and the Boys and Girls Club, 32nd year of that endeavor. We put together a big, great golf tournament with a lot of celebrities. Probably 30 plus celebrities will be in attendance. And then we do about a 2-day. We have a concert on the first day. John's going to be cooking steaks. I mean, that's what he loves to do, is cook for people, and just what I call, entertainment. I mean, it's a way to say, hey, thanks to the donors that support our foundation. And then the next day is the golf tournament. The likes of Kid Rock and Lee Bryce and a bunch of other. I mean, Jelly Roll just came on board. A lot of celebrity types, but also athletes that support us. Johnny Damon is a huge supporter of what we do. So it's getting together for 2 days, raising quite a bit of money to support our mission and to support the Boys and Girls Club. And actually, we're working on building them a new building. So it's kind of like a really cool deal to kind of be involved in some things that help young kids and for them to thrive and be successful, just like John did.
Why Nashville or Tennessee? I know it's outside of Nashville, but
It's a great question. We used to do this event in Arkansas, but we learned that Nashville is now the entertainment mecca of the country. And
pretty big.
tell you, I have a lot of friends there. Music is going there. People are in the entertainment world are going there. You would think that New York still has its footprint, Los Angeles has its footprint, but from a country pop environment, I mean, I'm a big country guy, but there's a pop phase there too now, and everyone's moving there, and Nashville's on steroids. And it's funny because that's where a lot of the money is and a lot of the entertainment. And then for us to do this event, it's easier to get the entertainers and the celebrities and the athletes there because it's a central location as well.
I actually have Tortuga Music Festival, which is a country music festival on the beach, on the 16th. That's part of when you guys are playing golf. So big country music fan these days. So it's not hard. There's a lot of good acts that are playing there. So for you to get some of these big names outside of that is pretty good get. How good are you at golf?
I actually began to play golf after I went to Ireland. I did a lot of work with the PGA of America and the USGA and through Folds of Honor. And I learned the game. I love baseball and softball and all that, but decided to take up the game once all of this happened and I lost my leg and felt like I needed something as a way to, gain some recovery, but also attention, cognitive. It's a great game for all of that. And took up the game. Didn't really do well at the beginning, but then right around when I went to Ireland in 2011, 2012, I decided to dedicate myself to playing the game a lot better. And John's given me some tutorials, and now I can hit the ball really well. And I feel good about playing the game. Once you learn the game and you can play it, it hits your heart. And at the beginning, it's hard. And I'll give you an example. DJ Khaled is taking up golf, and I see him a lot on Instagram, and he's enjoying it. And it's one of those things until you really taste it and try it, you really won't like it. And once you do like it, you're obsessed with it, and you just want to get better. And you'll never get. I mean, those guys on the tour and gals are really good.
They're incredible. It's unbelievable. Like hitting layups the way NBA players do. I'm good for someone who plays twice a year.
Yeah.
Which is not great. I saw John. I just happened to be walking by as John tees off. Doesn't even take a practice swing. He just gets up there, hacks away, straight down, and I forget what he said, but it was something funny. I have it on video. He said something funny after. It's incredible how good, and it's like I play basketball. There's people who are out there 50, 60 years old, and if you can shoot, you can shoot. So if you can hit golf, you can hit golf straight. That's why the women are so good, because they just hit straight. They don't need to hit it 300. Hit it straight, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
If you can hit it 300, that's even better. But golf has become it's a place where business is done. It's a place where charities look to raise money and bring celebrities, and people go and can have it. And it's probably the number one event for charities is a golf. And you guys have several events down there, throughout the year. It's unbelievable how that's become that. People who aren't even that good at golf, they just want to get out on the course with other people and be like, all right, it's a fun day. A bad day of golf beats any day of work or something. I don't know, something. Someone said that.
Great business interaction. Yeah, exactly. So
networking, really get to sort of talk to people about things. It's with not a whole lot. There's not a lot of situations where you can go in with four strangers and just kind of talk for 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. But it's game changing, and it's good for your mental health. That's how I've looked at it too, and physical health as well.
Is that the number one way you guys raise money, or is it donations outside of that? What's
everything? Individual donations, campaign donations, foundational donations, and legacy aspects, and then corporate. And then, of course, we do these events that bring in the corporate community. We make connections. I just connected with a group called Hub International. We're involved in the NASCAR Foundation. We do some stuff with them. And then we're involved with, Indy racing. My good friend Bobby Rahal is just a champion. Hub International sponsors some of those cars. It's just kind of cool, all of the things that happen, and we're involved with. And from wine tasting to just events in general and patriotic events that I think bring dollars to the foundation. And I do public speaking all over the country as well. And that's kind of one of the things that people book me for, and got a little shock and awe speech that I do to motivate troops and just tell people just to be great Americans.
Oh man, I'm trying to remember the person who spoke at us. She lost her leg in the war, and she does marathons.
Yes. In fact, I think we go to the same processes.
It's Stockwell.
Yeah. She's out of Chicago.
Yeah, she was great in motivation. It's like those are the types of motivational that I really respond to. John O'Leary, I walk up and you see him, you can tell he's been through something, and someone who's an amputee. And my life would be so different if I lost a limb. It just would be. And you have the will you have to survive and thrive and succeed is unlike anything else. I don't even know this from experience. I'm just saying it just by thinking about what I would have to go through So when you live it, different than someone just standing up there and trying to motivate you based on whatever they've studied and learned, which is important too. But give me someone who's been through it all day over that other stuff. And so those are the stuff that I think that resonates with me, and why you should be speaking a lot more than, you know, Mr. Whoever who made $1 billion in real estate. All right, big deal. You know?
Well, I love the messaging too. I love telling the story, and but what you know what I get out of it though, I actually get some gratification of being people that tell you thank you for your service and your sacrifice,
It
and that
never gets tired of hearing, right? I mean,
yeah, I love hearing that, and I take it to every time someone says it, I take it to heart because it's important.
yeah.
It's part of the recovery process.
What's the biggest thing you miss about having your leg amputated?
I just miss. There's some things that I do miss. I will tell you that I used to be one of those people that did a lot more outside in the yard. I love playing softball. You can't chase. It's hard. Look, I can play first base. Don't get me wrong. It is like you can't do it, but I like chasing. I mean, I love playing center field. I like chasing the ball and catching it and those kind of things. You know, just little things like that. And then the thing too is it just you know the there's sometimes things that happen that you just like, man, if I had my leg, I'd be able to do this. Number one is I can run. I can have one of those blade, but it's not the same, you know, using your leg and you know, the physical fitness aspect of just a good run, a military run like that, you know, you could still do it again with a blade and whatever it is and a prosthetic technology, but it's not the same from when you did it before. And as an amputee now, I understand all of those things and live behind that, you know, and your back hurts, your neck hurts. I mean, it's wearing a 14-pound prosthetic that you haul around everywhere. And those are the kind of things that just don't get seen. But you know, it's just part of it. I'm glad I'm alive and I'm glad I'm able to be on this show today and to tell a story about it and educate. And I think that's been a word that we've talked about today as well.
Do you know TK Klung? He does the celebrity softball
I do.
Texas.
And what a small world. In fact, I did his first event years ago, and you know, of course, he knows Toby, and Toby Keith and I are friends, and he's done some things with him in the celebrity softball event. I went a couple years, and then so I'm surprised we didn't see each other, but I went down there when they had the big event right there by the Cowboy Stadium, and 1 year before that, and him and I have done a lot of stuff with some foundations there in the Dallas area as well.
If you never got hurt and you in the military and you went on to civilian life, do you have any idea, any thoughts about what you would have done?
I think I would have been in the. I think I would have still been doing something in reference to possibly philanthropy, but probably in the government contracting space. I think a lot of veterans that get out go into that space because it's one that they can take their skills and turn them over to the contracting world. But you know, it's funny. You know, I've always looked at my later life doing some faithful things for mission work and that kind of thing. And I could see me, the older I get, the more I'd want to do something like that, like my father, and following his footsteps in that regard, where, you know, baptizing somebody in Colombia or something of that nature, being able to use my language as a way to communicate and effectively help people around the world in some way. I think that's important. And that's calling, and someday it'll happen, and maybe it'll be a couple mission trips, but you know what, I'll get something out of it as a retiree and as somebody that understands that, you know what, we got to help people around the world.
What's your favorite war movie, and what war movie would you say is probably the closest to reality?
You know, I love the movie Platoon.
Yeah.
Private Ryan's pretty tight as far as that spectrum of what I call war, the art of war, what happened there, and that movie's actually a pretty good made movie. Platoon,
Yeah.
it's just the storyline of all of that and kind of the reference points of things that I grew up with hearing from others. And you know it, but then I'm a big Clint Eastwood fan too, so I gotta kind of throw some of those Clint Eastwood movies, even the ones that I think are, you know, may not be military oriented. I just kind of I'm just a strength based kind of person, and I feel like those kind of movies really resonate with me. And John Wayne and those older ones too, that, you know, were, and those stars were actually big advocates of USO and that, you know, aspect of entertaining the troops.
Did
And
you have someone entertain you? I love when the comedians go, and some of my favorite comedians go. Who do you recall coming over and kind of entertaining you from maybe from comedy?
well, Montgomery Gentry comes to mind, Toby Keith. There were a lot of different, you know, comedy acts that came along. I mean, I just names don't come to mind, but I will tell you that I remember seeing all of that through the morale, welfare, and recreational programs that we had, and it was kind of good just to see and kind of just, you know, you're on edge and just kind of take your head away from everyday chaos to just some music and seeing an entertainer and
You
being.
just need a break, you know. I mean, you need a break from life and from reality, because the reality is tough. As again, this is all just hearsay and people I've talked to, but reality is tough. It's a tough life to be in service, you know, like deployed,
Yeah,
knowing that you might run into a bomb, or this might be it, or your best friend, the person that you're right next to. You know, who knows what's going to happen. And we take advantage of that here, you know, for granted. And it's tough. I do it myself. I try and stop myself when I do it, but truly amazed by the people who will risk their life and time and youth and adulthood, early adulthood, to give up that stuff to do it. So really, again, you know, so grateful for you and everyone else who does it. Good. Going to let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question everybody gets. You can spend 24 hours with anybody in the world. They have to be alive and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose and what would you guys do?
let's see.
Presumably someone you haven't met or know.
Okay, that's a great question. Say that again now.
You can spend a day, 24 hours with anyone in the world as long as they're alive and you're not related to them. Who would you choose and what would you do?
That's actually a pretty insightful question.
Just top of mind, who comes to mind? Someone you've always wanted to meet and hang out with.
You know, I've always wanted to meet Tom Cruise. I don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
that'd be cool.
I think it'd be kind of cool just to kind of. I'm one of those people, not to meet the gentleman, but meet the insightfulness of the craft of acting.
Yeah.
And I think it's a powerful craft. I mean, I will tell you that, you know, I'd love to see Jesus. You know what I mean? And I know
No, we don't put we make him alive, and so we don't get Jesus and we don't get someone's dead father, which believe me, I do the same myself.
the same thing too.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that you know, just because I've liked some of those movies that I think are pretty cool and I think are very impactful. And I just, you know, it's one of those things where I if I had a different life, I'd want to be an actor.
Yeah. It'd be
And
cool, right? Have you seen Top Gun 2?
yeah, well, no, but my wife and my daughter did, and I just haven't had. I don't go to the movies quite a bit,
It was good.
but
Few Good Men, my favorite movie of all time.
yeah, and I
That's
think
my favorite number one movie of all time. A Few Good
yeah,
Men.
I can't wait. I need to see it, and that's probably why that came to mind is because you know, I posted something about it recently that I need to see this movie and you know, I'm a big fan of you know, in the old days Jack Nicholson was a lot that I mean A Few Good Men, that movie was a powerful movie.
Star-studded, just like Platoon. I mean, the cast of that movie was
It is
great.
yeah, it's pretty kind of cool to see that kind of stuff. So really impactful stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna put Tom Cruise on the list. I don't think he's ever been mentioned in 270 episodes. You talk about your dad. I think one of the things I miss most about my dad is that he's not here to see what I'm doing now, and I think he'd be proud of me. And I don't know your dad, but I think he'd be proud of what you're doing. And you know, there's not a greater feeling in the world when you think that or hear that. Just that you're doing good in the world, and people would be proud of you, and people are proud of you. And like we say, people saying thank you for your service. So keep doing what you're doing. We're gonna hope to get more involved with what you're doing in some capacity, however that might be. Check out the website because it's not as easy as it sounds. Right? It's jdme1991.org. That's the website. You can email. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram. It's the Heart of a Lion Foundation with events all over the U.S., but a big event coming up. And you can find a way to help even if you can't make it to the events. Really appreciate your time here today, and look forward to seeing you at one of these events sometime in the future.
All right, my man. Well, you take care and Godspeed.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon. We got another episode, I think, next week. We got some episodes with some maybe some people who are going to sing. I know John likes to sing, so I assume he'll get on the mic for the next event. But have a great night. Have a great weekend. Do something good for you, for others. Check on people, and we'll see you soon.